We'll call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of December 19th. We'll note that all commissioners are present. First item of business is the order of business. I know we have a development agreement with Horizon Holdings that we need to add, and I would like to make that AA. We'll act on that first under Section 4. Are there other changes, Mr. Kessel?
Yes, President Johnson, I would like to submit to the commission another item, and that would be the contract to award the contract on the bid for the Armory roof renovations, and that would be to Martins Brenny Construction Company. And I have those contracts here. We can send around.
Okay, we'll make that item H then, contract award on the Armory roof. Are there any other items? Okay, with those two changes, would there be a motion then to approve the order of business as amended?
So moved.
Sir, we have the motion and the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Then we'll go to tab 4, the non-timetable agenda. And the first item we'll consider then is this development agreement with Horizon Holdings. And who's making that introduction? Mr. Colling?
Mr. President, Commissioners, before you is a proposed development agreement with Horizon Holdings. This is for the property known as the Industrial Park Subdivision, Section 16. The plat for that subdivision was approved by the Commission a couple meetings ago. This development agreement is a condition of that plat and provides for the installation of the required infrastructure that the city would mandate for that particular development. The exact details of the infrastructure included in the agreement deals with water and sewer services, will be served by Southwest Water and on-site sewer. This property is far enough north that it is not able at this point to connect with any of the city municipal water or sewer services. It does also provide that the property will have roads built to a county specification rather than a city specification, and provides that the developer will be required to post some security assuring the completion of that required infrastructure. Be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. Are any comments or questions? Now, would there be a motion regarding the agreement?
I'll move to approve the agreement.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Then we'll go to item A, the financial report. Mrs. Johnson?
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. I'll highlight a few items from the financial report through November. We'll start with the general fund report. With 92% of the year completed, our property taxes equal $3.1 million and were 100% collected compared to budget. Our other taxes and fees is 96% collected compared to budget. Our intergovernmentals, which include revenues we receive from state and local governments, such as the highway distribution tax and the oil production tax, is 93% collected compared to budget. We have received $500,000 of oil production tax money in July and $1 million in September, due to our increase in mining-related jobs in 2011 to 9.2%. These amounts have been moved to our new Oil Impact Fund, which is where we'll account for all revenues that are associated with oil impact. Our licenses, fees, and services, which include such things as building permit revenue and oil royalties, is 78% collected compared to budget. The building permit revenue is up 35% over last year. Our municipal court fines are up 22% over last year. This section also includes our administrative fees, which are transferred from the enterprise funds at year-end. Our sales of city lots and equipment, we have sold $1.7 million of city lots through November, and our total general fund revenues equal $9.4 million, and we're 101% collected compared to budget. Our general fund expenses include general government, which includes administration, court, finance, and buildings and grounds. 92% expended compared to budget. Our public safety, which includes police and fire, is 84% expended compared to budget. Our engineering and streets is 85% expended compared to budget. And our cultural services, which includes museum and forestry, is 83% expended. Our contingency and reserve includes the West River Community Center Major Maintenance Reserve and our contingency account, which totals $21,000 at the end of November.
Mrs. Johnson? I know we're going to have a special meeting here at the end of the month to make any budget amendments that we have to do. Are you anticipating that we will use up the full contingency amount?
We will actually use that when we calculate the amendments. We'll first use up the $65,000 in our contingency first before we request any
Okay, so
amendments.
yeah, then the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Our total general fund expenses equal $7.7 million through November, and we're 82% expended compared to budget. In our enterprise funds, this slide shows our water and wastewater fund, which we've combined in 2011 to better reflect like operations. Our revenue is $6.5 million through November, which is 128% collected compared to budget and 35% more than last year. This large increase in revenue in 2011 is due to bulk water sales. Our expenses and capital outlays total $5 million and is 89% expended compared to budget. Our solid waste fund also shows an increase in revenue due to added accounts for both residential and commercial growth. Our revenue is $2.7 million through November, which is 123% collected compared to budget and 27% more than last year. Our expenses and capital outlays total $1.9 million and is 75% expended compared to budget. In our sales tax reports, in our 1% sales tax fund, we received $418,000 of revenue in November, which is up 36% for the year. Our expenses include $758,000 paid towards job creation and senior programs, and $800,000 towards our Badlands Activity Center pledge. Our 0.5% sales tax, we received $209,000 of revenue, which is also up 36% for the year. Our expenses include $822,000 towards the West River Community Center bond. In our hospitality tax, we received $76,000 of revenue in November, which is up 31% over last year. Our expenses total $472,000, which includes our Badlands Activity Center pledge, the CVB Special Events Grant and their subsidy, the Parks and Rec Lighting Grant, and landscaping for the TR statue. Our occupancy tax breakdown shows revenues and expenditures total $472,000 through November. This is a 55% increase over last year. All occupancy tax revenues collected, minus a small admin fee, are paid to the CVB monthly. In our street projects report, we received $123,000 in revenues, and we've expended $1.1 million towards those projects through November. The reforecast column in your report shows the increase in the 50% share of the 1% sales tax that will be expected at year-end due to higher sales tax revenues. Our development impact fee program is broken down into residential and commercial schedules. These schedules show the impact fee projects that have been approved and the funds available for future projects. Our residential program stands at a negative $22,000 at the end of November. The timing of construction compared to special assessments received will alleviate this negative balance. And our commercial schedule shows we have 5 projects that have been approved, and the balance available for future commitments is $1,078,000 at the end of November. We've also included the 2011 budget reforecast that was done in the spring. This just shows revenues that we reforecast after our budget was approved last September. Those are some of the highlights. Are there any questions?
Any comments or questions from Mrs. Johnson? All right, would there be a motion to approve the report as presented then?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frenzel.
Aye.
Mr. Altman.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Jackson.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. Brings us to item B, which is consideration to approve the second reading and final passage of ordinance number 1441. This is a recycling site ordinance, and Mr. Kessel, did you want to introduce that before we open it up for public comment?
Thank you, President Johnson. This recycling site compliance ordinance is related to the dumping that's going on mostly at our 10th Avenue East recycling site. That's one of several sites, and it is receiving a great deal of material that is not accepted at the recycling site. And so, unfortunately, we felt the need to initiate an ordinance that would allow an administrative penalty for those who drop materials there that are not recyclable. And so, this being second reading, there has been no changes since first reading.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kessel. This time, we'd invite the public to comment on ordinance number 1441. If there's anybody from the public that would like to comment, just step to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Any public comments on 1441? No public comment on 1441. Any comments by commissioners or other city staff? There's no comments. Is there a motion regarding 1441?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have the motion to approve the second reading and final passage of 1441 along with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, then we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. Brings us to item C, which is a loan agreement from the Future Fund to the Development Impact Fund. And Mr. Kessel, would you care to introduce this item?
Thank you, President Johnson, and I want to point out that this agreement is only, it's a short resolution, but there's a lot of people involved, including Public Works Director Soren, Finance Director Johnson, Attorney Coling, and myself, and I got elected because I lost the arm wrestling match, so I get to present the item. What it does is it funds the infrastructure, the impact program that the city uses to help developers provide infrastructure into new developments into the community. As you heard from Finance Director Johnson, this would cover the liability that the city has incurred or will incur shortly. We have about $1.8 million in development that's been paid out, and this body has committed over $3 million. So what we'd like to do is use the Future Fund as the funding source for those, to pay for those infrastructure via a loan. So the city would loan from the Future Fund dollars to pay for the infrastructure program, and once that program has been, the funds have been assessed, special assessed to the properties, we'll use the proceeds once those properties, or once those special assessments are paid, to replenish and repay the loan from the Future Fund. The nice thing is it will eventually, if all things go well and all special assessments are paid, is it will add to the Future Fund because there is a 5% interest rate that will be charged. And so that's a difficult mark in today's economy to achieve. So we feel that this is a win-win scenario. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. The only change that I would like to point out is in the second page of the document. We'd like to start or commence payments on February 1st of 2013. And then I assume that would end our payments in January of 2023. And the reason we want to do that is, as I just mentioned, we only have 1.8 million in specials right now, so the amount that we're collecting back does not, we wouldn't be able to make that monthly payment. But as soon as we do get the remaining specials assessed, we'll be able to easily make that payment that's in the agreement. With that, that would end my report unless there's questions.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel? I'd just point out, if you turn to page 7 of the financial report and look about midway down the page under the capital project funds, you'll see the impact fee for capital projects, and you'll notice that it's, $3 million in the negative, and that's why this action is being taken. To bring that fund back to about a zero balance. And in total, we will have moved $4 million into the impact fee capital projects. Earlier, we moved $1 million from the half-cent sales tax into here under the same conditions that it be repaid, and now we'll have $3 million here for a total of $4 million. So that's really the extent of the city's risk at this point in terms of funding infrastructure regarding the oil impact. So really, I think compared to some of the other cities in western North Dakota, we don't have near as much money invested into infrastructure right now as some of them.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jackson.
and maybe it would be good to say that really another way of saying what we're doing right now is that instead of selling a bond, we're financing these improvements internally.
Exactly.
Is what we're doing.
We're using primarily the future fund to do it. So, Mr. Colleen, is there a resolution number here for this resolution?
Mr. President, this would be Resolution 70-2011.
70-2011, okay. Other comments or questions, discussion regarding this proposed resolution?
I think one more important comment is on our future fund, when we've been tracking the results of our investments in that, it has certainly been south of a 5% return. And 5% has been that magic number that we've been looking for a conservative return to help build that fund over time. And so leveraging it into something that does have that potential for the 5% return certainly should bode well for us in the long term of improving the overall return of that fund in general.
That's a good point, Commissioner Altman. We've been just barely able to attain a 4% return, so this will help that fund out.
President Johnson, the only other comment I'll make is that we expect that the ending balance at the end of the year of future fund would have been $6.5 million, so it doesn't jeopardize, we're not committing the whole future fund to this one single project at this time.
Okay. Any other discussion? Are there any objections to changing the two dates that Mr. Kessel mentioned? If not, then we'll write in those dates, and with those changes, would there be a motion regarding Resolution 70-2011?
Mr. President, move to approve resolution number 70-2011.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. Okay. Now we go to item D, which is an annexation. And Mr. Colling, I think you're introducing that item.
Yes, Mr. President, Commissioners, if you'll recall, back on November 7th, the City Commission adopted a resolution providing for the annexation of SLH subdivision on the north side of Dickinson, along with some property to the north of that subdivision, as well as to the east of that, or to the, excuse me, to the west of that subdivision. The notice, or the notice of hearing and that resolution have been mailed to property owners and to the county. It's also been published on the paper, and this meeting is designated as the time to hear and determine any protests to the annexation. To date, the city has not received any written protest to the annexation. So upon your finding that the owners of less than 1/4 of the property proposed to be annexed have filed written protests, this property will become part of the city limits. City staff recommends the adoption of the enclosed ordinance, which finds that the city has received no protest to the annexation. If you adopt this ordinance, we will proceed to file the annexation resolution along with a map of the annexed area, and upon recording, that property becomes part of the city limits. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, Mr. Colling, you referred to this as an ordinance. It's actually a resolution, isn't it?
I'm sorry, yes, this would be a resolution. It would be Resolution 71.
71, okay. Well, you've heard Mr. Colling's introduction of the item. Any comments, questions here? Would there be a motion then regarding this Resolution 71?
Motion to approve Resolution 71-2011.
Second. We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel? Aye. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. It brings us to item E, which is a support letter. And Mr. Kessel, are you making that introduction?
I certainly will, President Johnson. Han Development would like to build a 40-unit low-income housing facility at the intersection of basically Washington 4th and Painted Canyon. It'll be just south of on 18th Avenue East, and if you recall, we did this last year. We supported 3 different projects moving forward. This one will have 40 units that will actually be constructed new to the city of Dickinson. There is a requirement that they receive a support letter from the city in order to be eligible for tax credits that will then be applied for through the North Dakota Housing and Finance Agency. I believe Mayor Johnson had the opportunity to visit a development in his travels, and they seem to do a very nice job. I believe that these, once constructed, that these units will be an asset to our community, and I'd recommend that we support the letter, the required letter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kessel. Mr. Kessel and I did have an opportunity to meet, I would guess about 3 weeks ago, with a representative of this company, actually the person the letter's addressed to, Benjamin Ide, and he mentioned that they were building 2 projects in Williston, this subsidized housing one, and then also a senior development project, and said they were either completed or near completion. I happened to be traveling through Williston that following weekend, so I did go up. I found the units and took a look at them just from the exterior, and they look good. I think they'd be a great addition to our community. If I think now we're just considering supporting the subsidized housing one or affordable housing one, but I think if they're successful with this, they might even build a senior living facility also. So, probably the one thing we would like to see, and may not get it with this one, but the parking is all outside. It's a separate parking lot. It's not street parking, but they don't have garages with the ones up in Williston. And Mr. Kessel and I did speak to them about that issue.
I believe they did say they might do carports or add posts so that there can be plug-ins for engine block heaters, things of that nature. And we may get other letters requesting support. I fully anticipate we'll get at least one, if not two, additional letters, and we can support them all, and then that allows them, that application to be completed and put into the North Dakota Housing Finance, and then they sort through the details and score each applicant. I think it's important that this is new construction, and it's quality construction. It's what we need in Dickinson, no doubt.
Okay, any comments or questions for either Mr. Kessel or myself regarding this project?
What kind of time frame were they looking at, or did they foresee?
I believe these would all be spring construction. They have the units that they've replicated, not only in Williston, but in other locations, and so I think they would use that same design, so it'd just be a matter of mobilization. The land, as I understand, has been acquired already, and it's properly zoned as we speak, so it'd just be mobilizing and obtaining the building permit.
Okay.
I suppose if they can get a timely building permit, might be the issue. Well, they have to compete for these tax credits, don't they?
Oh, most definitely. These are statewide competition for these tax credits. As I said, we had 3 applications last year, and I expect to have 3 again this year. So there's no guarantee that this project will be awarded the tax credits, and that usually is a point, if they don't get the tax credit, the project doesn't happen. That's generally the case.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, would there be a motion then regarding this support letter?
So moved to support.
I'll second.
Okay, we have the motion to approve and the second. Further discussion? Hearing none, then we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel? Aye. Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Item F is tentative special commission meeting to approve amendments to our budget. This would be scheduled for December 29th at 5 p.m. Is that going to work for all of you? Or at least 3 of you? It works for me. I mean,
Yeah.
we're
Fine with
okay?
me.
Would there be a motion then to go ahead and approve or schedule a special commission meeting then for that date?
I'll move.
Time? Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. We'll vote, or any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Ullman?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Item G is going to take us a little longer tonight, so we'll wait on that item. We'll go to item H, which is the item we added regarding awarding the Armory roofing contract. Mr. Kessel or Mr. Colling, anything else you'd like to say about that item?
The contract should be going around so that you can peruse it. It is a standard AIA contract. I will mention that Mertens Brenny does and has put up a performance and pay bond, and they are properly licensed in the state of North Dakota. So we don't anticipate any issues. They'll enclose the Armory, assuming this contract is awarded, by yet this month. And then we'll start working on the interior work. Attorney Colling has reviewed the contract, and everything appears to be in order.
Okay, and at a prior meeting, we approved awarding the contract to them, so tonight we would just be approving the contract.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You've heard the introduction. Any comments or questions? Not, would there be a motion then regarding the approval of this contract?
Move to approve contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel? Aye. Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. It's 5 o'clock. We have a public hearing scheduled at 5 o'clock, and this regards a zoning ordinance change regarding campgrounds, and it's ordinance number 1437. At this time, we'll declare the public hearing open, and anyone who wishes to comment on this proposed ordinance may do so. Just step to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Okay. Anybody like to, we had quite a discussion on 1437 at a prior meeting, and we made some changes to it. But is there anybody from the public that would like to comment? Do we seem to have it right now? Mr. Broughton, yes, I'm kind of looking at you. You probably weren't going to say something, but I know you're capable of saying something at the on the fly here, because you're an old Toastmaster, right? We had to do table topics, so.
Table topics, it is.
So this is Ted Broughton. I'll introduce you, and is there anything you can tell us about this now?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I didn't get called out of order this time. I'm Ted Broughton. I've heard one time that legislation is a lot like making sausage. It's a messy process, but if you do it right, the product turns out okay. And I didn't mean to add to your mess, but I'm happy with your product.
Okay, so we won't act on it tonight. We'll just hear the public hearing, so we'll bring it back at the next regularly scheduled meeting for second reading and probably final action. So there still will be another time if there is something that comes to mind. But at this point, you and your group are satisfied with what we have.
Yes, I was
Okay.
very satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening
being
to our
here.
considerations.
Well, we sometimes do, you know. Lots of changes happening to our community, and so, we want to get them right. So, is there anybody else from the public that would like to comment regarding 1437? Not, we'll declare the public hearing closed, and I just invite comments by city staff or other city commissioners regarding 1437.
President Johnson?
Yes.
Just two comments. First of all, I want to say thanks to the public for their patience. We created this ordinance in a response to an issue, a gap in our zoning code, and I'm glad we achieved something that's acceptable to everybody who seems to be involved. And I also wanted to say, I did speak with Parks Director James Kramer about this ordinance, and their campground is required because of the Bureau of Reclamation. Every 14 days, they do have to turn their sites over. That's a requirement placed upon them from the Bureau of Rec. So they see a lot of movement. They can either change from one site to another site, which is kind of getting around the law, but they physically do have to switch sites. Not suggesting we go back to that at all, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware we did consult with Parks Director Kramer regarding the issue, and I believe he's supportive of the changes as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Stein.
I'd like to see a copy of this ordinance submitted to the Dickinson Press so that they can, I know they had some concerns in their editorial about this here ordinance. I'd like to make sure they get a copy so that they know those concerns have been met.
Okay, other comments? All right, I know we're running a little early, but Chief Dossinger, do you think everybody's here for the 5:10? Can we? We'll let you introduce this next item then.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission. At this time, I'd like to introduce the two new officers of Dickinson Police Department to the commission and the community. They are Officer Matthew Gerving and Officer Justin Frederick. You guys would like to stand up? Officer Gerving is originally from Minnesota, and Officer Frederick is a Dickinson native, and he comes to us from the Stark County Sheriff's Department. We'd like to welcome Officer Gerving, his wife Jenny, and their family to our community. And we'd also like to welcome Officer Frederick and his wife Elizabeth to the Dickinson Police Department family. And at this time, would Mr. Kessel do the swearing-in ceremony, please?
Please come forward, gentlemen. If you could, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Justin Frederick,
Will support, obey, and defend
will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the state of North Dakota,
the state of North Dakota,
and the city of Dickinson,
and the city of Dickinson,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will strive always
and that I will strive always
to meet the highest ethical standards
to meet the highest ethical standards
implicit in my employment
implicit in my employment
and in the furtherance of the best public interest.
and in the furtherance of the best public interest.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Welcome aboard. Please sign there. You can take them. If you wouldn't mind saying a few words of introduction to the commission and to everyone present, we'd appreciate that.
My name is Matthew Goering. As Chief Dostinger said, I came from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I was a part-time deputy there. Moved here with my wife Jenny and 2 kids, Hadley and Grayson. We are enjoying the community. We like the community and appreciate the opportunity and look forward to serving the city of Dickinson.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Justin Frederick. Born and raised in the city of Dickinson, lived here for 36 years. Recently was married to Elizabeth Steiner. She sits right back there. We are currently awaiting our first child, due March 17th. I'm pretty excited about that. Excited about my new job. Worked with the Sheriff's Department here for 5 years, just under 5 years, and made the switch to the Dickinson Police Department and looking forward to serving the community and the citizens of Dickinson.
Well, welcome to both of you. We appreciate the fact that you joined the police department. From what I read in the paper, there's plenty to do here, so I think we'll keep you busy. So,
Thank you.
any comments or questions here by commissioners? Mr. Kessel?
Mr. Friedrich, I just want to say I know your father, and I'm glad you didn't put him down as for a reference, because obviously you got the job.
Is your dad in the audience? I noticed you introduced your wife.
Right back here.
Yeah, but okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
I guess if we can roll into the next item, we can get that accomplished too.
Yes.
On March 19th at approximately 10:17 a.m., officers were dispatched to the Heat House parking lot in response to a vehicle that had hit a concrete wall. Officers arrived on scene and found the driver of the vehicle sitting in the front seat of the pickup. The driver of the vehicle, Mr. Dale Zietz, who's in the audience tonight, was not breathing, he had no radial pulse, and did not respond to stimuli. Officers removed Mr. Zietz from the vehicle and effectively began CPR. Officers continued CPR until Dickinson Ambulance Service personnel arrived. Mr. Zietz had suffered a heart attack, causing the accident. The officers involved in the incident, the officers involved in saving his life were Officer Tom Gross, Officer Jaden Peters, and Officer Brandon Stockey. At this time, I'd like to present the 3 officers with their departmental life-saving awards. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and for a job well done. All of us as citizens appreciate having officers on staff who are capable of dealing with emergencies like that, and I imagine Dale is very appreciative also of that. So, okay. Thank you. So we've just completed all the timetable agenda items 5 minutes early, right? Oh, okay. Well, there's nothing else to do there, is there, right?
I have a couple reports that I could give.
Oh, okay. We'll let you give your reports then.
Thank you, and I know that they're not on the agenda this evening, but I think they are three things that you'd like some information on. The first is elections. We have elections coming up. We have a primary on June 12th and a general election on November 16th. I bring it up today because petitions will be available for circulation on January 14th of 2012, and those petitions must be returned by April 13th of 2012 at 4 p.m. They haven't determined yet. It's up to the county to determine when early voting will begin. They're anticipating about 2 weeks prior to each of the elections, but they haven't made that decision completely yet. It may be a little longer or shorter than that. And then if you want to vote by absentee, you can do so 40 days before the election, and that date is May 3rd. That would be the beginning of absentee election ballots being available. So I wanted to make sure that those dates were out there. If you are interested, we will have petitions available as of January 14th. And again, we have 4 of the 5 city commission positions that will be up for election. The other is we did have a visit today by the governor. We are honored by his presence here in Dickinson. And President Johnson hosted the group at TMI. That group included the state folks, Governor Dalrymple, Ron Rauschenberger, Francis Ziegler from the DOT, Lance Gaby from the Land Commissioner, 2 county commissioners, and then 2 city commissioners, and then our local legislative group. So it was a nice audience. We did talk about the state income tax liability. They have there's a new income tax program which allows people to donate essentially dollars to this program, and then they can receive a tax credit. So if you have a state tax liability, and it's all in support of housing in North Dakota. But we also talked about hospital reimbursement issues, and issues that the city brought up included fire response and personnel, police response and personnel, infrastructure, the financing infrastructure, and the extensions of infrastructure, general staffing and pay issues. The county brought up roads, bridges, services such as social services, and one that I have to admit I was unfamiliar with, and that's their Veteran Service Office. As we see this influx of population coming into Dickinson, it has doubled the amount of open cases in that office. So that's one of those that I wouldn't have anticipated, but makes sense when you think. And then district health, of course. District healths in other states are run differently than they are here, and so there's expectations when people go into our district health units that they aren't meeting at this time. We also talked about federal transportation funding is anticipated to decline over the next few years, and that will cause us issues in terms of DOT funding. So overall, I thought it was an excellent sharing of information, and just very pleased to have the governor and his staff here to listen to our issues in anticipation of the next legislative session. And the last thing I just wanted to quickly mention is our transit building. We are scheduled to be complete construction by the end of the month. We hope that schedule will be maintained. There are some things, we started this budget very, very tight. Our contingency fund was very small, and Elder Care has chosen to pay for some changes to that building that will make it a little bit more staff-friendly. But we hope to have an open house as soon as that's complete, and that should be within the next few weeks. So that completes my report this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kessel. Any comments or questions for the city administrator by commissioners? Okay. Not, we'll go back to the non-timetable agenda, and the last item we have there is the annual city administrator's performance evaluation and compensation recommendations. Each of the commissioners did fill out the performance review along with comments. They're included in their entirety in the board or meeting book. The performance review looks at leadership, management, job knowledge, communication skills, professional development, relationship building with city employees, and relationship building with community citizens and others. And on the first item of leadership, and I should say for the public, the commissioners are asked to just rate whether the city administrator exceeded their expectations, met their expectations, or does not meet their expectations. And I'm happy to note that in all categories, Mr. Kessel did not receive any does not meet. So he either received meets or exceeds expectations. So in the area of leadership, he had 3 commissioners rated him exceeding expectations, 2 commissioners rated him meeting. When it came to management, again, 3 commissioners rated him exceeding their expectations, 2 in meeting their expectations. Job knowledge, 4 commissioners have you exceeding their expectations, 1 meeting. In communication skills, 4 have you exceeding expectations, and 1 has you meeting. In professional development, 3 have you exceeding their expectations, 2 meeting their expectations. Relationship building with city employees, 2 commissioners have you exceeding expectations, 3 meeting. And relationship building with the community, 2 have you exceeding expectations, and 3 have you meeting expectations. When you compare this to last year, it is essentially about the same rating, maybe just slightly stronger than 1 year ago, but overall I would say it's a very strong performance evaluation. And if there are individual comments regarding the evaluation that commissioners would like to make, I'd invite you to do so at this time.
I guess I would only, try to put a perspective on this, that our staff is so important right now, just generally. Retention is an issue. I know that that turnover is happening continually with the competition that we have around us. The importance of that staff starts at the top, and I think we're really fortunate to have the person that we have. He's not perfect, but he does a darn good job, and I think we all appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Any other comments?
I guess I would just further comment that it's important for the public to remember that Sean isn't the one that asks for the increase each year. The evaluations are done by the commissioners, submitted to the mayor tabulates the results, and then the mayor makes the recommendation as far as if there would be any changes to the compensation. If you relate this back to your own personal life and reviews that you would have in your own employment, the difference would be that, Sean's performance review is done on TV and in front of the commission, which is a little bit different than maybe how your evaluation at your job would be. Further to that, his salary is published and public knowledge, which adds a whole nother level of probably uncomfortableness to the situation, at least for Sean. And I was speaking about this with my own employee because we have evaluations coming up rather soon. And I said, what would it be like to have your evaluation in front of all of the peers in your profession, your salary published, and then the increase known by everyone. And she said there'd be no way to have that go well among peers. And so I just want to highlight the, I guess, the scrutiny that's involved with this and take some of it away from Sean and remind people that it's not Sean coming to the commission saying, this is what I feel my increase should be, or this is where I want to be at the end of this year. So, taking that into account, I guess I just have two questions that I want to clarify as we move forward. And one would be that the general perception from last year would be that we signed a 3-year contract with Sean. And with the 3-year contract, certainly the city took on a little more risk and at a important time in doing that, and that we want to retain our professional staff as well. So one of the areas that I think that we need to address and just be clear on is how the 3-year contract works and what mechanisms are in place there for increases in salary so that everybody is clear how the contract works. And then the second caveat that I would have is just asking how we arrived at the increase for this year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Altman. Any other comments
Mr. Mayor,
regarding the performance? Mr. Frenzel?
I just want to say that I'm very pleased that Sean has the position that he has. I'm very satisfied, and I think the general public is satisfied, or at least should be. With that, I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Frenzel. The recommendation that I have is for an adjustment from $100,000 a year to $106,000 a year. I'll go back to the contract. We do have a 3-year contract, and the amount of the salary is the first year of the contract. And the city specifically doesn't set 3 amounts for each of the years. So, for example, if there's $100,000 in that contract for year 1, we don't predetermine what year 2 is in year 3. And that's because we really want to see how the city administrator performs. Because, for example, if we would have set a number for year 2 and then he wouldn't have performed so well, it wouldn't seem right to grant him a raise. So you specifically leave that open, but the terms of the contract do allow for adjustments. So that's why we're looking at this. And then when it comes to the amount, here's kind of what I think about when I'm putting together a recommendation. One of the things, of course, is the market. What do city administrators or senior people in the public sector, and for that matter, the private sector, but more probably important, the public sector, what do they receive? So we can get some information from the League of Cities, for example, on city administrator, or if it's a city auditor, what their salaries are in our major cities. We look at that for a market. If we can get some information from, say, some cities in adjoining states, we do that because there is a regional market for people in this profession. And so you're looking at the market. Certainly you look at the quality of the performance. So I mean, for example, if this would have been an average or poor performance review, that would certainly affect my recommendation. Mr. Kessel, in the 3 years he's been here, has received excellent performance reviews. So the quality of the performance is good. And then I think about, well, what has been happening in the community, say, over the past year? And I think certainly without question, workload has grown and the complexity of the job has grown. We're dealing with many more complex issues today than we dealt with certainly 2 and 3 years ago. And just for an example, annexations. I mean, you know, during our normal course of business for most of the years I've been here, we haven't had to deal with something like annexations. Pretty complex thing, and we're dealing with that. I mean, when we look at just all the development we're dealing with, the financial implications of that, people probably don't realize, but when you total up all the funds that we deal with, whether it's the general fund, or it's sales tax funds, or it's the operation of the water, wastewater, the solid waste, it's over $30 million. So that's no small business. We're running here a business. He's actually, in a sense, our chief operating officer of a $30 million business. And so it's one that's growing in workload and complexity. So when I put all those factors together, thinking about the market, thinking about what it would cost us to replace him if he walked in front of a truck or got recruited away by another city. And I think given the size of the job today, the complexity of it, the cost of housing here, if we had to go out into the marketplace and recruit a replacement, I think we would quickly find that our salary level would actually have to exceed the level I'm recommending. But it's my recommendation that effective the first full pay period of 2012, his salary be adjusted from $100,000 a year to $106,000. And I'd certainly take questions or comments regarding that recommendation.
I just have one further comment, and something that's a little different in government than in private. For instance, in my industry, you know, any employee can make just about any type of salary depending on the work that they do. However, my understanding is that with government jobs, there's something called compression, and that because of the limiting factor of compression, it affects any salaries below that and how much they can be increased or what earning potential other employees would have as well. I wonder if you could speak to that too.
I certainly can. And compression is something that happens in the private sector as well. The way I like to think about it is, you know, if you kind of start at the least, say, responsible, I don't want to say it that way. If you look at the positions, say, in the pyramid, organizational pyramid, the ones at the bottom of the pyramid, and you start with them, and then generally you go up in grades, so you go to their supervisor level and then another supervisor level. Generally speaking, when it comes to compensation practices, there would be about a 10 to 15% increment or difference in salaries between, say, the supervisor and the people they're supervising, especially at the lower end of the pyramid, bottom side of the pyramid. As you go up that pyramid, say if you have 4 or 5 levels of structure in your organization, that difference can grow. So for example, by the time, say in the private sector, the difference, say, between the chief executive officer and the executive vice president, that might be 30–40%. Now in the public sector, it's not going to be that much. I think typically it might be more like 15%. Well, if you have 4 or 5 levels of organization, whatever you might have, between the bottom and the top, you have to allow kind of for those increments to happen. And if the top is too low, you compress. We had that situation in our police department for many years when we had a chief of police, we had a captain, we had a lieutenant, we had sergeants, senior police officer, regular police officer. I think I got 6 levels. And you had lieutenants who were salaried, sergeants who were hourly, and the sergeants who reported to the lieutenants could make more than the lieutenants because of compression. They would get paid overtime, lieutenants would not, and, because there wasn't enough of a differential between the pay grades. And that's the issue of compression. I think our city is in fairly decent shape compared to where we were a few years ago, but I guess I don't recall what the percentage gap would be between the next highest paid city employee and Mr. Kessel's salary. Maybe you might know that offhand, but
It's less than 15%. I guess I've not worked out the number. I can probably do that quickly and let you know.
but, you know, that 15% would be a kind of a fairly healthy differential to have, but that's the issue of compression. In the case of the police department, what we did to correct that is we eliminated the lieutenant's position, took one step out of there, or one grade separation out of there, and have been increasing salaries there on the higher end too, or the more senior level, to have enough of a differential between pay grades.
President Johnson, I think that number's around 7 or 8% right now.
The difference between you and the next highest paid employee?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I suppose we'd have to cut that person back, so it'd be, you'd have that 15% then.
Mr. Soren probably wouldn't like that.
Okay.
One other further question, and then I'm done. We're looking at a 6% increase for Mr. Kessel. I'm just wondering how that compares to what other employees will be receiving as well.
I think, Mr. Kessel, you'll have to take that question.
If you look at this from September of this year, we provided an across-the-board increase of 4%, if I remember correctly. Some members of the executive team did not take that increase, including Mr. Soren and myself and a few others, but it was awarded to the rest of the city staff. In January, I believe that increase again is 3%, excuse me. So it was 3% in September? Is that right? Okay, I'm sorry. So 3% in September, 3% in January. And then if you're eligible for a step increase, you'll also receive that in January as well. So those step increases are anywhere from, I believe, 3 to 4%. So effectively, if you were employed with the city of Dickinson in September to January, you'll get around a 9 to 10% increase over that time frame.
We also had an increase effective the first of the year for 2011 in Mrs. Johnson in general. Do you remember what, that was 3% also?
And in addition, if you receive skill-based pay, if you have a CDL requirement in your position, most of those received a $1.50 an hour increase, and for dispatchers, it was 50 cents. So I believe that in total is what we've done for increases in the last year.
That, by the way, that was also a topic when we met with the governor this morning. You know, it's whether you're a county or a city or really state employees, you know, especially state employees working in the highway department. They're finding lots of competition for these employees from the energy sector, and of course they're feeling the pressure of the housing costs too. And so the state, the governor and Mr. Ziegler talked about some of the things that they're having to do as a result of extreme competition for employees.
So to summarize, over the course of the same year, it's 9% in structured increases plus a step, plus if you're a skill-based pay receiver, you get more. So hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? Yeah, well, you've heard my recommendation and the very good discussion around this. Would there be a motion then regarding that recommendation?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Frenzel?
I'd like to move that we raise the salary to $106,000.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Oltman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Well, keep up the good job, okay? Mr. Kessel?
Thank you, President Johnson, I appreciate that, and I humble to be the city administrator in Dickinson. I think that we are a bubble in the national economy, and it is my privilege to continue to serve the city, and I just appreciate, this is obviously the most uncomfortable meeting for me, even though the evaluation is good. I'd rather sit through a Board of Equalization meeting than this, but I thank you very kindly for your comments and for the increase.
All right. Well, we'll move to tab 5, Public Safety, and we'll begin with the Fire Department.
Good evening, President Johnson, Commissioners. Tonight we present the activities of the City Fire Department for the month of November. And again, we show a slight downward trend in our responses, which is a good thing. 25 responses for the month of November as compared to 28 a year ago, 21 in 2009. Year-to-date, January 1 through November 30th, 258 total responses compared to 215 last year and 194 in 2009. 20% increase over 2010, 33% increase over 2009. Those percentages have come down a little bit with a decrease in numbers this month and the previous month. And that's a trend we would rather see than the other direction, of course. Fire prevention and public education in November have been picked up again because we got the fire prevention activities out of the way as far as the tours, lectures, and demonstrations. We only had one of those in November compared to the amount you saw last month. 54 routines, 29 follow-up, 22 construction inspections, 4 child care, 32 miscellaneous, which again contains fire suppression system tests, fire drills, complaint investigations. One thing that this graph does not capture, data that we are capturing, however, in the office, is the amount of time that staff is taking in the plan review process as far as the fire department's function on that goes. And that's a considerable amount of time, of course, that does take them off the street. That's one of the impacts we're seeing in the routine inspection world again. November activities and training. Our special operations team reviewed the hazmat equipment in our regional response trailer. And in regular training, our crews took part in what we call truck operations. All of the members of the department are broken down into truck companies. Everybody's assigned a certain unit. But what we've done is we've made sure that everybody's also cross-trained. And that's the function of this type of training. All the crews are mixed up, and they have to train with a different truck than they're assigned to. Also included in your packet, that's the end of the slideshow. So. I have attached some information on our risk management program. Just a summary sheet that takes you to December 12th of 2011 as compared to year-end total for 2010 in our risk management program and how we're tracking injuries. Also, you'll see a copy of the Certificate of Completion from Workforce Safety and Insurance, recognizing that we successfully completed the safety management program again for the year 2011. The successful completion of that earns us a 5% discount on the workforce safety premium. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief Stevak. We did this morning when we had the opportunity to meet with the governor, and we're in general talking about the impacts. We did specifically bring up your concern with volunteers, fire department, how it's much more difficult to recruit volunteers now, and even the volunteers that we're able to recruit, many times their jobs take them away from the community, and so getting respondents here on a timely basis and on a sufficient quality basis is more and more of a challenge. And so we said from our perspective it probably means that we'll have to have more full-time staff to deal with that, and Commissioner Jackson and Mr. Kessel can comment, but it also sounded to me like this is nothing new, that they're hearing the same things from our other communities in the West. They are aware of it. It was good to have our members from the legislature sitting there, but that this is, indeed is another true impact, and so monies that the legislature and the governor can appropriate to city, to use in their general fund to fund more full-time staff would, I think we communicated to them, would be a good thing, but just wanted you to know that we did talk about that topic this
Thank you for
morning.
bringing that up at that meeting, and it is not just a Dickinson problem, it is a regional problem. That's definitely the case.
Well, it's with all first responders. I mean, they talk specifically about, you know, the volunteers that
Right.
do the ambulance services and things like that. They're all busy, and so, yeah.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Chief Seevar?
President Johnson, I just want you to know that the City Hall is not immune from the reaches of the fire department. City Hall is also inspected, as they do every other business, and there are some issues that we have to work on. So I'm not sure if that was a way to augment the budget for the fire department or not, but we may have to bring a plan to this commission to renovate some things here in City Hall.
I wish you'd have reported on that prior to filling out his evaluation. and-
Yeah, I was told not to mention anything
Oh,
until
you
after
were.
tonight's meeting, so.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Chief Dossinger.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission again. I have before you the November 2011 Dickinson Police Department report. For the month of November, we had 103 total accidents compared to 116 in November of last year. So we have definitely felt the benefit of the unseasonable weather. Hopefully it hangs around for a while. We had 6 injury accidents compared to 7 last year in November, and 24 hit-and-run accidents compared to 19 last year in November. We conducted a total of 389 traffic stops. There are 349 citations issued and 126 warnings issued. Currently, in the month of December, we have put overtime enforcement out. There are 2 teams of officers working specifically just traffic that we have allocated overtime funds for. They are targeting traffic light violations, red light violations, stop sign violations, and speed issues, particularly on 3rd Avenue West, north of 14th Street. Monthly comparison of total calls for service. As you can see, for this month, 2011, we had 1,717 calls. Last year, we had 1,502 calls. Total calls for service to date, this year we're at 20,970 calls at the end of November, compared to 1,151 calls at the end of November last year. So we're about 3,800 calls more ahead of last year's pace. The Southwest Narcotics Task Force was busy last month. They had worked 15 cases that are being worked or have been submitted for prosecution. The cases involved marijuana, marijuana paraphernalia, synthetic marijuana, methamphetamine, synthetic marijuana, cocaine, cocaine paraphernalia, and other prescription paraphernalia. They also assisted in conducting 4 canine searches in our area. They included Kildare High School, Ettinger, Belfield High School, and Dickinson High. Are there any questions?
Where are you at staffing-wise now? Do you have all authorized positions full, or do you still have some openings?
We still have some openings. Currently, we are advertising for a police officer position. We have 2 allocated spots that we're still trying to fill by January 1st. We also have 2 dispatch openings that we are trying to fill.
Okay.
So we have several staff members that we need to hire.
Other comments or questions here?
I found it interesting that the Lifesaver Award went to 3 real old guys. As young as those 3 guys are, they're doing the job.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I'd just like to take the time to remind the community too, within this holiday season, to especially take the time to get from point A to point B, especially if they travel. Make sure they buckle up and obey the traffic laws. Have a safe holidays.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. Well, you have good holidays, too.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Public Works and Planning, and Mr. Cruton, I think these are all yours, so we'll let you introduce them.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, Commissioners, the next 4 items are mine. The first item is Cook Meadow Hill, second edition. This is a rezone petition. This is the second reading of it. At the last meeting, we had no public comments, and there has been no changes to the ordinance. The site is located westerly of 10th Avenue West and northerly of Cook Meadow Hills, first edition. Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Cruton. At this time, we'll ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment on ordinance 1438. If so, you just step to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public that wishes to comment. Would there be any comments by other city staff or city commissioners? Not, would there be a motion regarding this item?
I'll move for second reading, final passage of 1438.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Olmond?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries.
Mr. President, the next item is a rezone petition. This is a second reading as well. The first reading, we had no public comments. There has been a slight change. It's only minor dimensional changes to the original legal description for the rezone. The site is located easterly of 4th Avenue East and southerly of 40th Avenue East. It is for the Lyons subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Cruton. If someone from the public would like to comment regarding ordinance 1439, they may do so now. Just step to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public. Any comments by other city staff or city commissioners? Is there a motion regarding 1439?
Move to approve ordinance 1439.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Olmond?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
The next item, Mr. President, is a rezone petition for the Vaughan subdivision. This is a rezone from ag to rural residential. The property is located northerly of 35th Street Southwest and is approximately 1.5 miles easterly of the intersection of 21st Street East and 10th Avenue East. There's been no changes from the first reading and no public comments. Mr. President?
Okay, thank you. This is ordinance 1440. If anybody from the public would like to comment, just step to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public. Any additional comments by city staff or city commissioners? Hearing none, is there a motion regarding 1440?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Mr. President, the next item is a zoning text amendment. This is a staff-initiated zoning text amendment. It has went through the Planning and Zoning Commission and has been recommended approval. This is a change to Section 3909, which is off-street parking. City staff is proposing to amend the zoning code to require expansions greater than 50% or increases of parking lots greater than 50% to be paved for non-conforming or non-compliant parking lots, and that would include either gravel or dirt parking lots. The intent of this ordinance is to bring non-conforming parking lots into the standard that we would have today for a new development. If they came in today, they would be required to have the parking lots paved, and we're just bringing significant increases to developments for businesses to conform to that existing standard. There is a provision in that would require a 50% cumulative effect over 50%, and that would either be applied to building footprints or for the parking stalls, and that would be from the date of the ordinance forth in the future. In essence, what that would mean is that if you came in for an expansion that was 25% today and came back 3 years from now with another expansion that was 25%, it would hit that 50% category, and they would be required at that second expansion to be required to pave the parking lot for the entire business.
Thank you, Mr. Cruton, for that introduction. Mr. Colling, is this 1441?
This will be 1442, Mr. President.
1442, okay. All right, this is consideration to approve first reading before we take action. We'll invite anybody from the public who would like to comment regarding ordinance 1442. You may do so now. Step to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public, so we might invite comments by other city staff or city commissioners.
No question. How do you monitor this? If an existing business expands their parking lot without coming in, how do you, I guess, just as a city, how do we monitor this?
Currently now, we have a, you'd be required to have a building permit. You know, for the expansion, we would look at what the existing buildings are in site and just do a calculation and determine if they're coming in with an addition, they meet, you know, their current standard. Let's say if they had a 100-square-foot building and now they're coming in with a 50-square-foot building, well, they'd hit that magic figure, and at that time, they'd be required to upgrade their parking lot from gravel to pavement. The other side, if the use changes, an example might be for a use would be, let's say if we had a commercial office that was on gravel parking, and they all of a sudden decided that they wanted to have a restaurant there. That's going to be a little more problematic. We don't have a process in which somebody comes to the city, such as a business license or something, to get an approval to change a use on the site. That one's going to be the more difficult one. We're just going to have to monitor that one as best we can in-house. Hopefully, like most businesses do, they'll contact the city, and from that point on, they'll be advised in order for them to relocate their business in there. Of course, a lot of times, a lot of those will require remodels or additions to that, and at that point, I could determine if the use changes, then they'll be required to have additional parking spaces, which would kick it into this category.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? All right, would there be a motion regarding first reading of ordinance 1442?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion to approve first reading and the second. Any other discussion? Well, hearing none, then we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frenzel?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Olmans?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. Any reports? Well, I should ask, anything else that Mr. Soren or Mr. Cruton that you'd want to add?
President Johnson, if I could, I would like to just take a moment. Last week, we did have a situation where we had a person that was concerned about some of the debris left on the road out by the Baylor building. And I just want to take the time to say we are working on ways that we can improve that process and how we can keep that road a little bit cleaner. Currently, our staff is instructed to pick up any debris that they see on that road. For 2012, we have changed our fee schedule on tarping, and we're working on some enforcements of tarping loads to try and correct some of that too. I did expect someone was going to come tonight and address you, but with the lack of them being here, I did want to make you aware that we are aware of the situation and we understand the concerns with nails and debris getting thrown on the road, and we're working on solutions to try and help improve that situation. So with that, I'm certainly available for any questions about anything that's going on. Project-wise, last week we did meet with Apex again on the development of the wastewater treatment facility, and things are moving along with that, and they'll be here next month to have a presentation to you.
Thank you, Mr. Soren. Any comments or questions for either Mr. Soren or Mr. Cruton? All right. We'll move to item 7. Any comments, reports by city commissioners? No reports. We'll go to public issues. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the commission? If so, step to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. No one from the public wishes to address us. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Again, just remind you, we have a special meeting now on the 29th. With that,